Welcome to the podcast to Philippe. Today, we're going to be diving into no-code development and really trying to cut through a lot of the hype that's out there to take a look at some of the challenges and pitfalls that people often encounter when they're using these no-code tools.
Yeah.
We're going to be uncovering things like platform dependency, the limitations in customizing your applications, scaling challenges, security considerations, organizational issues that can pop up, hidden costs that you might not be aware of, and also why no-code isn't necessarily a silver bullet for every type of project, particularly complex ones.
Yeah.
Our mission today really is to equip you with the insights you need to navigate the no-code world effectively and successfully. And also a quick personal note, if you're enjoying this content and you want to support the podcast, please help us reach 1,000 subscribers on YouTube today.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Your support really does make a huge difference. So you've likely heard this exciting promise of no code, right?
Right.
This idea that you can build applications without needing to write a single line of code.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic, especially if you're looking to bring an idea to life quickly or streamline processes internally without needing to assemble like a whole dev team.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And the marketing around no code often highlights this simplicity.
Yes.
It does.
It makes it sound very easy.
Very easy.
But in reality, it can be a bit more complex than that.
Yeah, and we're going to kind of dig into that. We're going to look at some of those less obvious challenges and how you can actually avoid them. And to kind of kick things off, we'll actually touch on a real-world example. We're going to talk about Arthur, who, after a year of struggling with a no-code app, had to ultimately recode it entirely from scratch using traditional coding.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and his experience is not unique.
Right.
You know, a lot of entrepreneurs have faced similar frustrations where they've maybe wasted subsidies on apps that turned out to be unusable, or they've seen projects collapse due to some really simple misconfigurations.
You just don't think about that at the beginning when you're starting.
No, you don't.
It's just like, let's get this out there.
Yeah.
I have this great idea. Let's build it.
Exactly.
And you don't think of all the background stuff.
Yeah, and that's really the point of this deep dive, is to sort of highlight 5 of these kind of hidden problems with no-code tools, the ones that those kind of enticing landing pages often overlook.
Yes.
And more importantly, discuss how businesses can strategically avoid these pitfalls.
Absolutely.
So to give you an idea of the no-code landscape, we're going to talk about website builders like Webflow and WordPress, which a lot of people consider no-code these days.
I would say they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there are platforms for creating web applications like Softair, which can connect to databases like Airtable. And then you have these automation and workflow tools like Zapier, Make, and N8N, which really add a layer of logic and complexity to what you can do.
Yeah.
So when we talk about no-code development, it's useful to think about it as often involving what we'll call a winning trio.
Okay.
Which consists of the interface, which is what the user sees and interacts with.
Right.
The data, which is where the information is stored, often in something like Airtable.
Makes sense.
And then the logic, which is really how the application behaves, and that's often managed by automation tools.
Got it.
So understanding these 3 components is really key to understanding where potential issues can arise.
Yep, absolutely.
So many people that are drawn to no code are maybe wary of the technical aspects of traditional coding.
Sure.
And they see this as a way to kind of bypass that.
Yeah.
But we also see people with technical backgrounds who are looking at no code for its speed and efficiency.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So for instance, we've heard of a developer who was able to build a functional prototype for an equestrian event logistics app in just 24 hours using Softair and Airtable.
Wow, that's fast.
Yeah, so you can really see that initial reactivity no code can offer.
Yeah, you can.
But as that kind of example hinted at, this initial success can sometimes lead to unforeseen issues down the line.
Right. Yeah, I can see that.
So let's delve into some of these key pitfalls and how we can avoid them.
Yeah, let's do it.
So one of the first things we want to talk about is platform dependence.
Okay.
A lot of no-code solutions, they rely on third-party platforms.
Yeah.
So you need to ask yourself, what happens if their pricing changes drastically, or even worse, they shut down entirely?
Right.
This can lead to really unexpected costs and major difficulties in moving your data and applications.
It's like you're kind of at the mercy of that company.
You really are. You
Yeah.
really are at their mercy.
Yeah.
And imagine you've spent months building intricate internal workflows on a platform,
Right.
only to find yourself scrambling to rebuild everything from scratch because they've either gone out of business or they've changed their pricing to something that's just not tenable.
Yeah, and the data structures might not be compatible, so you can't just easily transfer it over.
Exactly. And it's not just about lost time.
Right.
This can actually cripple your operations and lead to significant data loss if you haven't planned for this.
Yeah, you've got to have an exit strategy from the beginning.
Right, from day one.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's crucial to consider this potential for vendor lock-in right from the get-go.
I agree.
So building on that idea of being tied to a platform, another challenge that people run into is limitations in personalization.
Okay, yeah.
So no-code tools offer a range of pre-built features.
Yes.
And that's great to a certain point.
Yeah.
But how much can you really customize your applications to meet your specific needs?
Right.
And this can be a real problem when you have unique requirements that fall outside of the standard functionality of the platform.
Yeah, because you can kind of hit a wall where you need a specific feature integration that just doesn't exist.
Right. And then you're stuck.
And then what do you do?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then this can also lead to performance and scalability issues.
Sure.
Because applications built with no-code tools can struggle with performance as your data grows or the number of users increases. And we've heard of a startup that after their activity tripled, they had to completely rebuild their system from scratch because the no-code solution was just not able to keep up.
And that's costly.
It's extremely costly.
It's costly in terms of time and money.
Both. Absolutely. So it's so important to think about your long-term growth.
Yeah.
And whether your chosen no-code platform can actually handle that.
And will it grow with you?
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And because many no-code platforms kind of abstract away the underlying infrastructure,
Yeah.
security can sometimes be easily overlooked in no-code projects.
Yeah, you might not even realize it's an issue until it's too late.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And misconfigurations within these platforms can expose your sensitive data to breaches or even loss.
Right.
And not all platforms guarantee secure and seamless data migration either.
Oh, so even if you can get your data out, it might not be secure.
Right.
Yeah.
So implementing robust security practices and understanding the security features of your platform from the very beginning is really vital.
Absolutely.
And this kind of leads us to another interesting area, which is internal disorganization.
Okay.
Because the ease with which no code applications can be created can actually lead to chaos if it's not managed properly.
Right, because anybody can just spin up an app.
Yeah, and they do.
Right.
And we've heard stories of companies where different teams have independently created numerous applications using various no-code tools, and it's led to widespread data duplication and inconsistencies across systems.
Yeah, you get like 15 different versions of the truth,
Exactly.
and none of them talk to each other.
And none of them talk to each other.
Yeah.
And then they have to bring in a team to try to consolidate everything, which can be extremely expensive.
Yeah, huge mess.
Yeah. So establishing clear IT governance is really essential in a no-code environment.
Yeah, you need some sort of oversight.
You do.
Yeah.
And this kind of lack of central control can also contribute to another often hidden issue, which is unexpected costs. And this kind of ties back to the platform dependency we talked about earlier.
Right.
But no code is often marketed as this cost-effective alternative to traditional development.
Yeah, you see that a lot.
You do,
Right.
but it can come with some hidden costs.
Okay, like what?
So things like sudden platform price increases as you scale or if you need more advanced features.
Right.
Or you might even find yourself needing a complete rebuild using traditional code to overcome some limitations of the platform.
So it ends up costing you more in the long run.
Potentially.
Yeah.
So understanding the total cost of ownership, including all the potential hidden fees and future scalability costs, is key.
You really got to do your research up front.
You really do.
Yeah.
So we've highlighted some significant challenges here.
Yeah, some big ones.
But there are some strategies that you can use to avoid these pitfalls.
Okay, that's good.
So the first one we'll talk about is the hybrid approach.
Okay.
And this involves strategically using no code for what it's best suited for. So things like rapid prototyping, quickly addressing simple needs, empowering non-technical teams.
Right.
But being prepared to transition to traditionally coded solutions for those complex large-scale projects once you've validated the concept.
Right.
So this hybrid approach gives you the speed and flexibility where it matters and the robustness of code when you need it.
Yeah. the best of both worlds.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Another key strategy is to involve your IT department from the beginning,
Oh, yeah. Good point.
because they can help assess the suitability of different platforms, make sure that security protocols are in place, and just generally guide the no-code strategy.
Right. So you're not just letting everybody run wild.
Exactly.
You've got some central control.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And before you even commit to a specific no-code tool, it's vital to do a thorough strategic analysis.
Okay.
So that involves assessing the platform's scalability, its security features, compliance certifications, understanding the overall costs, all of that.
Due diligence.
Due diligence, absolutely.
Okay.
And then it's also wise to prepare an exit strategy.
Right.
So document your workflows, your data structures, make sure you can migrate to another solution if you need to.
Yeah. So you're not stuck.
Exactly.
Okay.
And given all the potential security risks, prioritizing data security is absolutely essential.
Yeah, absolutely.
So make sure your no-code configurations comply with security standards and you have robust security practices from the outset.
And it's important to make sure your team is actually equipped to use these tools effectively.
Well, that's a good point.
So this might involve investing in some training or maybe even outsourcing the management to experts.
Yeah.
And, getting an expert early on can really help frame the project, set realistic priorities, and ensure a smooth integration with your existing systems.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And before you even start a no-code project, it's crucial to take some time to define your needs and objectives.
Makes sense.
So create a map of your existing processes. What goals are you trying to achieve? It can help you avoid over-engineering a solution or undersizing it.
Yeah. You want to make sure it's the right fit for what you're trying to do.
Exactly. And finally, try to limit your dependence on any single platform.
Okay.
So diversify your tools where feasible, choose platforms that offer easy data migration.
Yeah, you want to keep your options open.
You do.
Right.
Absolutely. And it's worth considering open source or self-hosted no-code and low-code platforms.
Oh.
So these often provide more control over your data, and they can reduce the risk of that vendor lock-in.
Right, because you're not tied to a specific company.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we've talked about a lot of things theoretically here,
Yeah.
but there are real-world examples of the hybrid approach being successful.
Oh, like what?
So a lot of startups, they're using no-code platforms to launch what they call a minimum viable product, or MVP,
Right.
to test their core ideas with a limited budget.
Yeah.
And then once they've validated the product, they bring in traditional code to develop more advanced features and ensure scalability.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it really does.
Mhm.
And another important thing to remember is that even in a no-code environment, understanding how to structure your data effectively can have a big impact on performance and cost.
Oh, that's interesting.
So if your data is poorly organized within your no-code platform, it can lead to slower processing times and higher costs.
Oh, because the platform has to work harder to manage that disorganized information.
Exactly.
Got it.
And the ease of no-code can sometimes be deceptive because it doesn't always force you to learn those fundamental principles of application architecture and data management.
Yeah, you can kind of skip over that initial learning phase.
Right.
And then run into problems down the road.
Yeah, you're not forced to think about it.
Exactly.
Like you're-
You just don't.
You just kind of jump in.
Right.
And this kind of ties back to the issue of interoperability and vendor lock-in that we discussed earlier.
Right.
Because unlike traditional programming where data can often be transferred between different systems due to common standards, no-code platforms can lock you in.
Yeah, it can be difficult to switch platforms and get your data out in a usable format.
Right.
Yeah.
And even workflow automation tools often lack interoperability.
Oh, so you can't easily transfer your logic from one platform to another.
You can't.
Yeah.
So you're kind of stuck.
Yeah, that's a problem.
And the experience of the HelloBud travel app really highlights the potential limitations in personalization with no code.
Okay, how so?
So the founders, they had a clear vision for their app, and they partnered with a no-code agency specializing in Bubble.
Okay.
But the agency, they largely relied on pre-approved blocks and templates that didn't fully align with what the founders wanted.
Wow.
And it resulted in an app that didn't really meet their needs, and they ended up having to rebuild it.
So even though they were working with an agency, they still ran into those limitations.
He did. But it's important to have a balanced perspective here because despite these pitfalls, no-code workflow automation tools can offer some significant advantages.
Okay, like what?
So they're really great for connecting different online services,
Yeah.
especially for tasks like API integrations and user authentications.
Yeah, that can be really time-consuming to do manually.
Very time-consuming.
Yeah.
And the ability to modify workflows in a live environment can be incredibly valuable.
Oh, yeah, because you don't have to take everything down to make changes.
You don't.
Right.
And, we've mentioned open source a couple of times.
Yeah.
And it's worth considering these open source low-code options.
Yeah, what are some examples?
So platforms like WinMall and N8N offer a lot of flexibility, and they can really mitigate the risk of vendor lock-in.
Okay.
So WinMall allows for self-hosting and even lets you integrate code in different programming languages.
Oh, wow, that's really flexible.
It is.
Yeah.
And then N8N also allows for self-hosting at a pretty low cost and lets you create separate development and production environments.
So that's important for testing and stability.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it also allows developers to create custom nodes and integrate code modules, which overcomes a lot of the limitations of purely no-code platforms.
So you're kind of bridging the gap between no-code and traditional coding.
You are.
Yeah.
And to bring it back to one of our examples, remember Arthur?
Yeah. What happened to him?
So he decided to transition to a fully coded application. And while it took him about a year to replicate all the functionality of his initial no-code app, he saw some significant cost savings.
Oh, wow. How much?
So his infrastructure costs went from about $28,000 annually in no-code license fees down to about $1,000 annually for his coded application.
It's a huge difference.
It's massive.
Yeah.
So that really highlights the potential long-term cost implications of relying on those proprietary no-code platforms.
Yeah, you have to be really careful about that.
So as you can see, while no-code offers this really tempting shortcut to building applications, navigating it successfully requires a strategic and informed mindset.
Yeah, you can't just jump in blindly.
You can't.
You have to do your research.
You do.
Yeah.
So be aware of platform dependencies, limitations and customization, scalability, think about security, governance, hidden costs, and the fact that complex projects might just outgrow no-code capabilities.
It's a lot to consider.
It is. And as we've talked about, the hybrid approach, using no-code strategically and traditional coding when needed, often provides the most robust and flexible solution.
Yeah, that seems like the best way to go.
Yeah. So just to kind of recap here, remember to define your needs clearly before exploring any no-code tools.
Okay.
Prioritize security from day one, plan for scalability, consider those open source options, and don't underestimate the value of training or consulting with experts.
It's all about being prepared.
It is.
Yeah.
And with the rapid evolution of no-code and low-code platforms, it's really interesting to think about how these tools are going to continue to reshape the landscape of software development and empower individuals and businesses.
Yeah, what new challenges and opportunities will emerge as these technologies mature?
Lots to think about.
Definitely.
So we hope this deep dive has provided some valuable insights into the world of no-code and how to avoid those potential pitfalls.
Yeah. Hopefully people will find it helpful.
If you have your own experiences with no-code tools or further questions, we would love to hear from you.
Yeah, please share them with us.
Yeah, join the conversation.
Absolutely.
Thank you for taking this deep dive with us on Le Podcast Philippe.
Yeah, this was great.
Until our next exploration.
See you then.